Hello, ladies and gents. Hopefully, my mic is going to be able to pick up on my voice. I should probably get closer, actually. Back once again with one of these little advice videos. Today's topic is going to be all about self-worth and my very long, tumultuous? Is that a word? Did I say it right? I have no idea. It has been a very long journey, I want to say, just because it's not something that can easily happen overnight. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's about putting in that work every single day and recognizing that it is hard, it is difficult, nothing is ever really easy, but it's about how badly you want to make that change. And this is something that I still consistently struggle with on a day-to-day basis, but I'm definitely not as hard on myself as I was a couple months ago, because damn, I was down in the dumps for whatever reason. I was going through it. I kind of like tucked away underneath a blanket because I was like, you know what, let's deal with these problems later. But I've realized over time it's important to just tackle these issues head on, because all that's going to happen is it will manifest in one way or another. Try to keep this video as short and sweet as I can because, I don't like to ramble for too long and I want to make this as concise as I can. So let's get started with number one. As someone that's constantly in their head 24/7, especially with being in this lockdown and COVID and everything, I think it is very easy to project your thoughts on other people and think that what you're thinking is what everyone else is thinking, when that is most likely the furthest from the actual truth. I can guarantee you that 90% of the time, people aren't really perceiving you in the way that you think they are. You will always be your worst critic because you are with yourself like 24/7, right? You're going to see sides of yourself that people typically don't really get to see. For some reason, you think that part of yourself is being reflected in your friend's eyes, your partner's eyes, your family's eyes, whatever it may be. I think it's totally normal to be hyper-focused on those things because these are parts of yourself that you constantly think about all the time, right? I just want to kind of give like a brief little story time to better explain this in a way. Just a couple weeks ago, I had a sleepover with my friends and we were talking about clothes and online shopping. And whenever we're on this topic of like clothes and online shopping, it somehow always like snowballs into talking about how our body looks like, how we fit into certain things, whether we look good in like the shirt or jeans, and if we have the body type to fit into it, nitpicking over like our bodies and exposing our insecurities. So I think like the craziest thing is when my friends will bring up like an insecurity of theirs and I'll just be like, what? That's so crazy. Like, you're actually insecure about that? That's so wild because I've never noticed it before. And, to them, it's a really big deal. But to me, I've just never really seen it, even though I've been friends with them for years, like years at this point. And they'll point it out and I still won't really see an issue with it. To me, it doesn't make sense as to why they're insecure, but of course I won't truly understand unless I'm in their shoes and have been through the kind of experiences that they've been through. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I feel like this is a very valid example of how you can be really critical over something that other people really won't even notice, to be honest, unless you explicitly point it out. And even then, some people honestly just won't really care, or it won't even be as big of a deal as you think it is. I know that overthinking can sometimes be a coping mechanism. When I'm put in a situation that reminds me of like a past traumatic experience, I'll get super in my head about it and I'll start like imagining the possible outcome in my head and predict what's going to come as if that's actually going to happen, which puts me in the cycle of making myself feel sick and just super anxious. When you're super focused on the outcome, you're obviously not going to have a good time in the present. You're not going to be able to enjoy things as they are. It sometimes will ruin things in a way. I've definitely been in this position where I think I know that something's going to turn out one way and then I'll overthink to the point where I make myself feel sick, and then it will just literally be all in my head. Your mind can be so powerful sometimes when it doesn't have to be. Like, it's being all powerful for all the wrong reasons. Just remember that thoughts are just thoughts and they are not reality. I know that a really popular solution to kind of taking a detox is taking a social media break. I agree with this point, but up to like a certain extent, I feel, because I think it is good to do like a little social media cleanse, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary to go completely like cold turkey with it. I think for me personally, what has worked out for me is just surrounding myself with different types of content. Just like your physical environment, your digital environment that you surround yourself in can have a very tremendous impact on your self-worth and your self-perception. I remember back in high school, I would constantly be consuming like beauty content, fashion, makeup, etc., and that would often give me like a very warped sense of reality. And even now on TikTok, I find myself doing that quite a bit, where I'm like comparing myself to these really pretty like influencers and like locals whose only content is really just like being pretty. Honestly, if I was that conventionally attractive, I would flex that too. If you can make bank off of that, then go ahead, live your best life. But I just realized like over time that kind of consumption wasn't healthy for me, so I just switched my FYP to showcase like more hobbies that I'm into, whether that be like cooking, painting, just more like DIY stuff, and that kind of content makes me so happy. I also get like a lot of book recs now, which is really lovely, and I feel like once you change up your digital environment, you really just set yourself free to experience a different kind of joy, and you're consuming a very different type of energy. If you have time to kind of just sit there and wallow in your thoughts, you're probably not doing enough in your routine. And this brings me to the point from this lovely book. They split like a bunch of different topics into this very digestible, easy to read, kind of like a pick-me-up format. There is this one section that I really enjoyed, and it is called 102 Ways to Not Let Irrational Thoughts Ruin Your Life. In this little section, they have this one point. So point number 14. If you have time to be regularly consumed by irrational spiraling thoughts, you need more to focus on, more to work toward, more to suffer for. Make sure you're living more than you're thinking about living. And that really got me, because I feel like I tend to have the worst possible thoughts, and I tend to really spiral when I'm absolutely just doing nothing. I don't have much on my plate, and that could either be because I'm at the point where I'm thinking so much about something that it's prohibiting me from kind of going about my routine, or I simply am just not feeling encouraged enough to go out there and do more. I find that on days where I'm really busy and I actually set a schedule and want to work towards certain things, passions, hobbies, whether it even just be like really simple things such as cooking lunch, cooking dinner, dedicating more time towards a hobby or passion of mine, I find that those days tend to go really well for me, and that's when I feel like I'm kind of putting my life back together. It's kind of in the sense where you're like putting yourself on autopilot, but a good autopilot. When you're doing too little, it can really set you in this mindset of just sort of sitting there and thinking too much in a way. So being on autopilot can be a good thing every once in a while. That leads me to the topic of Skillshare. So thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. I've been using their platform for a couple of months now, and just recently I started a new course called Botanical Illustration, Paint a Colorful Garden with Watercolor and Gouache, taught by Sarah Boccaccini Meadows. I used to be really into watercolor, but then I stopped, so this class has really revived my interest in this form of art. I love how with this course, it's extremely easy to follow along. All the steps are broken down, from the sketching stages to adding details with your pens and highlights. Painting with watercolor is one of the most therapeutic activities out there. I find that I'll gravitate towards sketching and painting to get my mind off of things, because you can really get lost in it. If you're interested in starting your watercolor journey, I highly recommend you check out this course. The first 1,000 people to use the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare's premium membership, and after that, it's only $10 a month. I feel like I'm always the kind of person to be like, oh, I want to do this and that, but I'm always making like a bunch of excuses for myself in a way. Oh, I could be doing this, but let's just save it for another day, or it's too much effort. I have to put in too much work, and then I never get around to actually starting it. But you know what? I feel like I'm partly to blame. And I think sometimes you have to realize, like, instead of making excuses for yourself and putting yourself in this predicament, you could simply just be like, you know what, fuck it, like, I'm just gonna do it today. You just gotta like push yourself sometimes and realize that you're the one that's setting yourself back and it's nothing else. Sometimes it's really as simple as like you're the only one holding yourself back, unless there's actual like other circumstances and external factors, but you also have to realize like you yourself and your mindset is something that is also mentally holding you back. Have a group of role models, fictional role models. What's really great about having fictional role models is that it tends to kind of put you in this mindset of like, oh, you know, what would they do or how would they react in this situation? So this is what I tend to do a lot when I find myself in a very kind of like sticky situation where I don't really know how to act or react. I will always think about like, oh, you know, what would Leslie Knope do? As you guys know, one of my all-time favorite shows is Parks and Rec, and I love Leslie Knope, and I love how she's always so energetic, so bubbly, and she's always down to like help people, and she's always so proactive. It just has such a good positive outlook and perspective on life, whether it be towards like her friends, her family, her career. You know, these are like fictional characters, they're not real, but they hold all of these characteristics that could be applied to actual real life people and to yourself as well. When you start to gather like this little group of fictional role models, you could have so many different ones, and it's limitless. Essentially, you don't have to rely on asking for one particular person for help. There's just like so many people that you could think about when it comes to like really positive role models from a bunch of your favorite shows. You just got to think about, you know, why do I love these fictional characters so much? Like, what values do I see in them that I would love to apply to myself? Honestly, I'd love to hear what kind of fictional characters that you guys really vibe with and really look up to. Let me know down in the comments, because I'm just wondering how many of them are going to be like the same and how many characters that we all sort of relate to. That'd be really interesting. But alongside her, I do have a bunch of other characters that I absolutely love and adore. That is basically it for this video. I hope you guys were able to take away some things, and honestly, this whole thing is pretty much just a work in progress. I have days where I am just so unbelievably hard on myself. Sometimes it's hard for me to even take in my own advice, but then again, we're all human, and I think it's also important to note that not every day is going to be a good day. What's really nice is because we're human, we're able to feel a whole spectrum of emotions, and in a way, that is something to really cherish and hold on to, because that's what makes life beautiful, having these ups and downs. And you can't always expect every day to be great. You can't always expect yourself to feel good about yourself every single day. But what's really important is that you're always working towards a better version of yourself. You're always trying to kind of, you know, make these leaps and bounds, even if they are difficult. And I see you, as I always like to acknowledge, I see that you guys are working hard. I see that you're trying, and that's what matters. It's not about the end goal, it's about how you're getting there. And I think every single one of you, I think that you're doing great. I know that you're doing amazing. I don't have to personally know you to know that you guys are trying hard. That is basically it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will definitely see you in the next one. I hope you guys are having an amazing morning, night, or evening.